A book reading slump is defined as a period of time when a reader experiences a significant decline in their interest or ability to read. Unfortunately, I happen to be in one of those because life has been super busy with work and trying to plan a wedding. Now, there are many ways to get over a book slump. You can reread a favorite book, watch some booktube, pick up a fast-paced genre like thriller or fantasy, or go book shopping. The possibilities are endless. Now, with summer here, I am determined to get out of my book slump. So here's the game plan. Step 1, go book shopping. Step 2, read one of my favorite authors' newest releases. And step 3 is read a romance book that will hook me in. So let's see if I found the perfect antidote for a reading slump. Back because I already have a first impression. I don't know if this is a good or bad sign. Normally it takes me a while to really get the feel of a book, and it kind of takes you about 50 to 70 pages to really set up the storyline, your characters, who's gonna be important. I am barely on page 18. We're already going on a date. One of the first things we learn from one of the main characters is I'm caught out of breath because this person is just so beautiful and I want to go on a date with her, and he asks her on a date. And what's really throwing me off is that this character isn't very spontaneous, and normally he wouldn't ask someone to go on a date so bluntly the way he did in this book. And so that's why it's so weird to me. I'm like, why are we going on a date already when this guy is supposed to be grumpy? It really caught me off guard, and I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about this. But either way, I thought I'd let you know. Alright, so I'm here to give you a little update. So I'm a little bit less than halfway through with the book. First and foremost, if I'm being totally honest, I am really struggling with this book. You know, usually Abby Jimenez, her premises are kind of crazy. They're kind of out there, but they always make sense. There's always like a part of you that's like, okay, I can see how this is happening. With the book, with the characters, you kind of get sucked into it and you get sucked into the world. And I haven't been able to click with the world and these characters. And I think I figured out why. One of the things Abby Jimenez does really well is exposition of her characters. And in this book, I feel like we suffered a lot of the telling us, not showing us type of thing. And as a reader, it's sometimes really hard to get into that because you don't feel engulfed into the world. You're just getting told all of these facts and you're just supposed to believe this is a fact from this specific character without actually seeing it and without actually seeing their action. And normally Abby Jimenez doesn't do that, which is kind of a little frustrating to me. It's just a style choice that she made, and it's a style choice that I don't necessarily love, and I'm really struggling to connect with these characters because of it. Also, the other part that I'm really struggling with this book is that the characters started pretty much dating very early on, and we didn't get the chance to get to know the characters as individuals before the relationship, which is making the whole process of you rooting for their relationship slower because they're in a relationship and now you're getting to know them, and therefore it's like, oh, but you're already in the relationship, when normally you get to know the characters beforehand and then you root for it. Like, you have to work for the relationship, and that didn't happen in this book. And again, it's a choice. It was just a choice that she made that is different from some of her other books, but it's just something new that we're working with and something that I'm honestly not used to. Normally her books feel so smooth, so easy to get into. The journey has been a little rough for me here, which makes me really sad to say that. I've had to force myself to read this book, and honestly, I've been listening to it as an audiobook a little bit. For me and my reading style, if I feel like I need an audiobook to finish a book, it's not looking good. That's usually because I'm not in the story and it's a lot of work to read through the story, and it's just easier to have it playing in the background as an audiobook. Kind of defeats the purpose of reading, and that makes me really sad. So I will keep you updated and we'll see what happens.
You know, if you want the truth, she said.
I have officially finished Abby Jimenez, Say You'll Remember Me, and here are my thoughts. So first, let's start with my rating. This is the benchmark for what I use to rate the books, just so you can see a little bit about what of the different ratings mean to me. I'm giving this a 3 stars. Unfortunately, it wasn't my favorite, and actually the whole premise of this video is to get me back into reading, and this made me work for it. This made me struggle for it, so that definitely wasn't the goal. And I truly thought this was gonna be one of my top favorite books of the year, and clearly that is not the case. So just to give you a little bit more information about this book, our 2 main characters are Samantha and Xavier. Xavier is a vet, and Samantha ends up going to Xavier's pet clinic because she needs some assistance with her kitten. So they agree to go on a date, but the problem is that Samantha is currently going through a lot of family crisis, and she actually happens to be moving across the country to be with her family the next day. So afterwards they kind of have to decide, are we never gonna see each other again? Can we just maintain a friendship? Is there any possibility of us to keep seeing each other? And that is what sets us up for everything that is going to happen. But now let's talk about why I'm giving this a 3. I don't think this is Abby Jimenez's best work. If I'm being totally honest, this is probably my least liked Abby Jimenez book. If I had no idea on the order of how Abby Jimenez wrote some of these books, I would actually had to guess that this book is within the Happy Ever After playlist world. The Happy Ever After playlist was a good book, but you could tell that she was still finessing some of the great things that make her a great author, and this book felt like that, unfortunately. First and foremost, there was a lot of cultural references to the year that we are currently in. I don't know if that is the smartest decision to do as an author, because right now it's funny and it makes it be trendy, but in a year or 2, some of these references will already be dated. And I don't know how these references are gonna live in 3, 5, 10 years. They're not, let's just be honest. And so it kind of feels like Abby Jimenez was doing a disservice to herself. And then the last thing I will say about this book is the reason I didn't love it is because, in my opinion, the characters didn't seem to grow by the end of it. The reason why books are amazing, and the reason why some of the most famous books have won against the test of time, is because the character arc, the change that goes on within a character is so amazing, is so transformative, and is so relevant that people of all generations and all ages are able to relate to it. And unfortunately, this book, I don't feel like the characters grew. I mean, I can see a little bit of it, a little bit of character growth, but for the most part, Samantha, our main character, she is still the same person at the end of the book that she was at the beginning. Not to say that's necessarily a bad thing. That makes kind of like for a Hallmark type of movie. And Abby Jimenez does not write books that end up being Hallmark movies. Abby Jimenez usually writes books that hit your soul and hit your heart and make it be gut-wrenching. And this book did not feel like that, because we only really developed into the characters' like inner weaknesses and inner struggles with Xavier, and we really didn't do that with Samantha. So it felt like we were just reading pages of things that were just happening in their world. And the last thing that I will say about this book is the problems that these characters were facing were external problems. Therefore, they were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And because of that, the only solution for them wasn't them learning and growing and becoming someone new and becoming a person that can now live within their circumstances. They needed an external thing to come and fix their problem. So it was very much giving movie magic. We're gonna tie everything up in the end with a pretty bow just because it's the end and we need to have a happy ending. If I'm trying to think of the premise for what we're learning about life in this book, I'm really struggling to understand what that was. And it makes me really sad to admit that because I love Abby Jimenez. Abby Jimenez has written some of my favorite books ever. If I was blindfolded and I read Yours Truly and then this book, I would not be able to tell that they were from the same author, unfortunately. And so because of that, I just cannot give this higher than a 3. And that is just my honest feelings. I am not going to lie to you all and say this was the best book ever just because it was a new release. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there were some heartwarming moments within the book, but I feel like if we strip down all of the extra things, like at its core, like the essential premise of the book, I am not sure what that is. And that to me feels like a problem, especially for someone who reads a ton of books, sees a ton of literature. So yeah, I'm so sorry to report, but this was not what I thought it would be, and maybe I just hyped this book up a little too much in my head. Obviously, I just want to say book taste is subjective. If a book is good or not depends to that person and how it actually impacted that person. These are just my thoughts and my experiences, so no hate to anyone, no hate to Abby Jimenez. This book just happens to be a different reading experience than some of the other books that she's written. I'm gonna set this aside and I'm going to continue reading the books for this video and see if I can kind of get out of my slump and get back into the reading mood. But if the goal is to cure my reading slump, we are definitely not there, but no need to worry. We have more books and hopefully we're able to be successful in the end. Okay, hello everyone. I'm here to give you my first little update on the book. So The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, our main character, Clementine, she has a really close relationship with her aunt, and unfortunately her aunt has passed away, and because of that she has inherited her aunt's apartment. And her aunt told her that the apartment always turned magical when she needed it at a very specific point in her life. And guess what? The apartment is magical and she ends up running into this man named Ewan. I feel like some of these names that some of these authors are giving the main characters are like so out of left field. His name is Iwan, Ewan, right? Iwan? Regardless, Ewan is a man that ends up subletting the apartment during the summer 7 years back into the future. I'm about 50 pages into the book and it's really, really good. I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the writing style. First, I will say it's a little obvious where the story is going, and I think the surprise is not really a surprise, but I actually don't mind this because, so with romance stories, it's really hard for them to be not predictable because it's a romance story. There's only so much that can happen. And for this book specifically, I actually don't mind the fact that it is a little predictable because with romance stories, how we get there is everything, and that's what matters, right? She has such a fun way of writing things and like giving life into some of the settings here. I'm just gonna read a little sentence to kind of give you an idea of the way she uses to describe these feelings. So it says, I was a child of chaos with a wild heart, when in reality, I was just a scared girl hanging on to my aunt's blues coattails as she spirited me across the world. The imagery that she's able to write in this book is really well done, which is why I'm enjoying it so much, and I don't mind the fact that I know exactly how this book is going to go. So far, so good. This book is definitely doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it's getting me hooked and it's getting me started on a book. So hopefully I'm able to catch up to my reading goal and get out of this little book slump with The 7-Year Slip. and hello, and I'm here to give you my final thoughts on The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. So I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5. I thought it was really good. I can definitely see what the hype was around with this book. This was such a nice, refresher book because yes, it was a romance. Yes, it was a little bit cheesy, but in the best way. Sometimes I feel like romance go cheesy slash cringy route, and this one was definitely not like that. So many good components about it. I thought the characters were so beautifully developed and kind of like the growth that they went to. Not only was it great to see for us as a reader, but it felt so realistic. And sometimes this book gave me Abby Jimenez vibes, not necessarily in the romance, but in how realistic these characters and what they're going through in life feels and how characters are reacting. So I really, really enjoyed that about the book. I would highly, highly recommend if anyone is thinking about picking it up. The magical realism is so much fun and it's frustrating when it needs to be, but it is amazing when it is doing our characters some good. This book definitely did its goal of getting me back into reading because it was really lighthearted when it needed to be, but it also had those really realistic moments that made me so invested into the book. And because the premise of it was so much fun and so interesting, it was so easy to read the book. I had no trouble picking up this book at all.